I am Eric Powell, and I'd like to share an approach to grading that has really helped me in terms of facilitating a classroom that leads to self-directed learning for my students. In this short presentation, I'll clarify some of those terms for sure, and I want to say up front that when I say process-based grading towards self-directed learning, I understand that there are a lot of iterations of process-based grading and self-directed learning. I'm informed by a lot of great thinkers and writers on this topic. I go all the way back to Stephen Chudy's 1996 edition, collection of essays on the subject. Certainly, Sarah Zerwin's book Pointless has been influential. Other writers, Sal Inouye, a lot of people have been doing work in this area to move away from traditional grading and toward what might be a more equitable grading practice for students. And in terms of self-directed learning, I just don't think traditional schemes of grading really align with what we say we believe about teaching and learning. And so I shifted to this. I'm in my second year of doing this officially now, although I've been kind of building up to it over the last several years, and it really has made a difference for my classroom. So as I talk about this, I want to start with our understanding of grading, which is it's all over the place for teachers, right? And I don't know a single teacher who is try to use grading as a weapon or anything like that. Teachers are trying to give students an accurate mark of the progress or the proficiency during their time in their class. But one of the things that always bothered me about traditional grading practices, and I'm talking all the mistakes I've made about it, my students will tell you that I've made plenty of mistakes over the last 30 years. But I think it puts the keys of the car in the wrong hands during the whole endeavor. Let's go all the way back to the 19th century when these grading practices based on percentages and points sort of came into play as the population continued to grow in the United States. Secondary classrooms became larger and larger. The idea of giving personal, detailed feedback seemed overwhelming to a lot of teachers, and they shifted to more of a symbolic representation of grading. But as many educators and researchers have talked about over the years, it didn't take too long for us to understand that this maybe wasn't it wasn't as objective and accurate as we were hoping it would be. As early as 1912, a study was done to evaluate the effectiveness of this grading system, ranking students by points or grades somehow. And the results were fascinating, maybe not surprising, but researchers took one essay and they gave it to several teachers to score it. And based on those traditional, those ranking systems, the teachers scored the essay anywhere from a 50% to a 97%, so an F to an A. And if you have ever sat on a calibrating committee, you understand how that works. It's hard for teachers to agree on a score. We all look for different things. We've got our idiosyncrasies, our preferences. And so that's hard to get everyone on this, to agree there. And in response to that, well, of course, this is English, and this is an essay, and that's more subjective naturally. Let's take something that's more objective, like math. And so they took a geometry test, and they handed it to math teachers to score. And it came out even more drastic in terms of the range there, 28% to 95%. And so we've known for a long time that grading according to percentages or points or A, B, C, D is not sufficient and not as accurate as we want. However, it is something that's clean and tidy. It's good for organizational purposes. It's certainly something that we've just all kind of lived with. Most of us have anyway. And so it's hard to get away from those practices once they're in place. That doesn't mean it sits right. That doesn't mean it's okay. And again, I just think that I over the years had to think through this and really come up with a plan based on all those other versions and thoughts about grading that work for my students to achieve everything I want them to in class. And really what it comes down to is I had to formulate my beliefs about education anyway. And I think self-directed learning is ultimately why we're here. And by self-directed learning, and posted a video on that, and you can read more about it in my book if you want to. But the brief version of it is I think that no matter who we are, where we are in terms of our educational progress, our job is to move students just a little bit closer to being people of inquiry, people who can manage their time well, people who can engage in inquiry. They know how to ask questions and explore questions. They know how to seek help when they need it. And they see themselves as part of an actual learning community, because education, learning is a social activity. So when I say self-directed, I don't mean isolated. I don't mean people don't need each other, and they certainly, I certainly don't mean that they don't need teachers. Teachers play a huge role in this. But I do believe that it is, as Knowles said back in 1975 in his seminal book, that this is a process in which individuals do take some initiative, with or without the help of others, to diagnose their learning needs and formulate some goals. I think that's important. I think that's our goal. And of course, students come to us all over the place. Some are closer to self-direction than others. Some don't even want to be in our class and they're trying to get out. But our job is to move all of them just a little bit closer to that mark, even turning around some of those students who want to run away. Some of our students are already there, are very close, and our job is to help to see their next move in the process as well. So that's what I mean by self-directed learning, and I need a grading practice that aligns with that. So what I tell my students, and this is the same PowerPoint I share with my students, when I'm talking about grades in my class and how they will be graded, I do it this way, and I call it process-based grading because really that's what's going on. If they complete 60% of the tasks, the assignments that I collect throughout the semester with an honest effort, and notice that's in purple, I'll get to that in just a minute, but if they submit at least 60% during class, they're going to get a D. Similarly, 70% submissions, completions will get them a C. Now, if they want to bump up to a B, I'm going to have them complete 80% of their assignments with an honest effort, plus they're going to have a conference with me and revise one piece of writing from the semester. That's going to get them a B. For the A, I'm going to ask that students take it a little bit further yet. They're going to complete 90% of their assignments, and they're going to revise 2 pieces of writing, and they're going to complete a self-directed project that connects one of the concepts or text from class to their own interests. So that's the basic scheme of it. In other words, instead of me judging their work and saying they're good enough or not good enough, they are going to control how much they want to put into the class. It's truly it's about how much they want to engage in this process of work and learning on their own. That's the basics. Now, there's some clarification of terms here that we need to address. And those are the terms I think in purple. When I say honest effort, this includes a genuine attempt to address all the points of the assignment in an acceptable way. Have they addressed the points of the prompt? Have they given it an honest shot? I do reserve the right to ask students to keep working on the assignment until it meets that standard. I reserve the right to say, I think you need to keep working on this a bit. By conference and revision, when students are at that 80% mark, they're making good progress, and they say, hey, I want to revise one of my pieces of writing. We can meet, we can talk it over, we can talk about what they actually want to do to change it. Most of my feedback tends to be, what do you want to do next? If you could change one thing about this, what would you change? And then I give them a chance to do that and resubmit by the established deadline, which I'll get to later. By self-directed project, this is truly a chance for students to take interest of their own investments, hobbies, activities outside of class that mean a lot to them, and try to connect that in some way with the concepts we're exploring in class. I think that's really important for their brain to make those connections that way, and I think it's really valuable for their learning experiences. And again, by an established deadline. And so by that established deadline, I do think it's important to set that up. If I'm going to help them to become self-directed learners, I need to help them manage their time. I need to help them learn how to manage their time. And so I think deadlines are important. And I think that if they're going to be part of a learning community, they need to learn that skill. I think it's fair to everyone in the learning community for students to meet deadlines. I also understand that exceptions come, there are exceptions to the rule, things come up, and I do offer some extensions as necessary. If it's excessively late, or this becomes a chronic problem, I reserve the right not to accept the work. And after certain grading periods, I think we do have to have some markers there. The established deadline for revisions and for self-directed learning, this is for a couple reasons. Again, the idea of helping students to become managers of their own time, and also just out of fairness to everyone in the process, and the reality that I need to make sure that I have enough time to look at what they've done, adjust scores in the grade book, and have everything submitted accurately by the end of the grading term. So in this semester in 2024, I happen to have set January 17th. It's about 2 weeks before the end of the semester. Students can sign up at any point to meet with me and do revisions, to do their presentation. I will coach them through, answer questions, be a sounding board, be a listener, help them along the way, but that self-directed project really is driven by them and their interests. Interesting note here, and I found this out the first time I tried this, that some students might decide they are just going to sit back and not do the assignments, and instead they are going to just try to do the self-directed project. And so that's not quite engaging in the process of learning and growing. And so I do say that even if you turn in all of your work, but you don't do the revisions and you don't do the self-directed project, you're going to get that C, because I want the student to get into that driver's seat. I want to give them the keys. I want them to drive. Okay, and that means they have to commit to their own learning. I think that's just super important. So how does it look in the grade book? Well, a traditional grade book just isn't very conducive to this type of grading and scoring, and I've really had to kind of work the grade book in a way that it's not perfect. But rather than seeing points and grades in the book, students they're going to see checks, and they're going to see marks like that. So I have to explain to my students what this means. So a completed assignment, something that's turned in and acceptable, they gave it that honest effort, I marked it in, that's going to get a green check right there. If they did, they got a good start on the assignment, or, but they couldn't quite get it finished, or they're not quite ready, they have a few more things they need to work on, I hand it back, and I might have a note on it, or I might just say, hey, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. And this is great, by the way, not just, well, for any class. I teach AP Literature, but I also teach 10th grade co-taught, and my co-teacher and I work really hard to help our students understand this process, that they can revise, they can get better, they can improve, and by doing so, they can take a great deal of satisfaction in their growth as learners. And so look at these student examples up here. You've got the top student on that little grid I've created, who has turned in 3 assignments completely, but has one that's incomplete. We tell our students that if you just go back and finish the assignment, you address all the points. Maybe you didn't bring in text evidence, and that was one of the key parts of the assignment, or maybe you just got, it was an in-class write and you didn't get very far on it that day. You were trying, I watched you the whole class period, you just were having a hard time. Well, let's give it another shot and see if you can get your thoughts out there. I'll give you a day or so to work on it. You can come in after school or and work on it in class, whatever. We have that conversation with students, but if you do so, I'll change that to a complete grade, and then you're right there at 100% in terms of turning in assignments. The cool thing about this is that it really sets up a difference between feedback and grading. Grading is that coding system of the students' again, progress, achievement, proficiency demonstrated in class. Whereas I think feedback is that ongoing coaching, that part of teaching and learning that I think is so important and really is at the heart of what we do as teachers. So let's take the AP grading scale, for instance. In English, the AP grading guide is based on these 3 criteria: thesis, evidence and commentary, and sophistication. You can get 1 point for a thesis, you can get a maximum of 4 points for evidence and commentary, and you can get 1 point for sophistication. If I give, say, an in-class essay to my students, I'm watching them, they're all working hard. And by the way, since implementing this system, the quality and quantity of writing in my students has gone up. At first I was hesitant and I thought that students were going to take advantage of this, but it's just the opposite. It's almost like they're freed up not to worry about being judged as writers, and they're just engaging in the process of writing itself. And I mean that for both my 10th grade classes and my AP classes. It's been great. But when I shift then to really focusing on feedback and not grading, I can tell them this. Say you did get a 141 on your in-class write, okay? Or say you got a 130 on your in-class write. Both of those are going to go in the books as completed, okay? But then what I can do is spend more time giving feedback on how to help them improve as writers. This is going to come into play not in just the short term if they want to revise a piece of writing for their grades, but also in the long term, just to think of themselves as writers who engage in the active process of writing. For example, on that 141, I might give feedback like this. Your essay addresses all parts of the prompt clearly and convincingly. If you could add one thing to this essay or change it in one way, what would you do? And that's an important conversation, I think, to have, and to let students wrestle with that, and to ask themselves, yeah, what would I do to change this? What would I do to make this better? Quite often, they come up with ideas that are way better than the suggestions I might make. Furthermore, it moves the writing process away from the instructor's preferences and into the writer's ideas about who they are as writers and what they want to communicate. For the students who gets the 130, I can offer feedback like this. You establish a nice clear thesis in this essay, but could use more evidence and commentary to support and develop that thesis. We'll keep working toward the sophistication point. If you had more time to write, what would you add to this essay? Again, honoring the fact that they put in the work, but now how can we get better? And focusing on that. Again, I've done a lot of work on this for my class, but it has come from not just experienced lots of trial and lots of error, but also looking at what others have done recently. And I think this process is so important, and to see what others are doing with it, and to learn from others, and to kind of internalize this and make it make sense for ourselves. And that's what I hope this video will help others do who are interested in moving away from more of a traditional practice of grading to something that might be more conducive to what many of us believe about teaching and learning anyway. Thanks.